What is the worst situation that you survived? Serious. I drowned when I was 5. Dead for several minutes. Mom revived me with CPR. Spent 2 weeks in a children's hospital. 1. Being raped, which led to pregnancy. 2. Being upside down in a kayak with the river pushing me under an undercut rock. My cousin's husband went crazy. We didn't know he was heavily using meth at the time. When he came home from working on the road, he waved a loaded gun at my cousin and myself. We jumped in her truck to leave and he jumped in the back screaming at us to get back in the F*** King house* while waving his gun. She slammed the truck in reverse and he fell. We told him we would go in the house if he would get out of the back of the truck. He did and we floored it out of there. Obviously they divorced and years later he apologized to me because I had to see that, not because he threatened to shoot me. Grand mal seizure that started at the top of a staircase and ended at the bottom. Oh yeah, and I was carrying my dinner plate holding a fork and knife. Somehow managed to escape with only needing shoulder surgery. Not breaking my neck or stabbing myself while falling, convulsing. I was kidnapped by a child predator. When I was a kid riding home from school, a creepy middle-aged man chased me down with his car for nearly 10 minutes. As I hit exhaustion from trying to flee, I rode like a bat out of hell and jumped off into the arms of a stranger with his family in his front yard to protect me. The guy took off and the man who helped me held me while his wife called my mum to come get me. When I gave birth to my youngest child, my uterus tore in 2 places, and I was hemorrhaging. The doctors had to take everything out to make the bleeding stop and save my life. They said women who go through this usually don't survive. I was told this ordeal had a 5% survival rate. When I went to my 6-week checkup, the doctor couldn't believe I was walking by myself or that I had driven there alone. Motorbike accident, which is the reason why I now have only one arm. I was lucky. It was nearly my head. Car accident when I was 11. My brother and I lived. My mother, driving, did not. Growing up with a serious abusive alcoholic father. Being robbed in the ghetto. My friend was held on his knees execution style with a gun to the back of his head, and when I went out to fight them, didn't realize they had a gun yet because at first they tackled him. They ran up on me and put it to my head. Without weapons we would have stomped them. But it was what it was. In the end we were robbed of $1,200. But walked away. Plane crash during takeoff in the USAF when 40,000 pounds of 145th aviation fuel caught fire under my bony white ass. Had the fuel tanks been empty, as during landing, the fuel wouldn't have burned. It would have exploded and likely killed the entire crew of 14. As a Los Angeles deputy sheriff, accompanying a probation officer on a no-knock entry in Santa Clarita, and seeing the parolee a heartbeat away from blowing himself, and us, up with a homemade pipe bomb in a drug-fueled, I wonder how pretty this will look with it blows up moment. Asking my wife if she was having really bad PMS this month. The one I remember is being trapped under a raft in a swimming pool. I thought I was a good underwater swimmer. Was going from one end to the other pool, long ways, and came up under a relative who didn't know I was struggling to get out. Thought I was going to die. Contracted blood poisoning and turned into septic shock. I was 11. Doctor said 1 more day and they would have had to amputate my leg. 3 more days I would probably have died. During this stay at Ree Hospital, my cat also got ran over by a car. This incident happened around 2008–2009. So my senior year of high school. 17 at the time. To give you some context, I am a type 1 diabetic and have been since the age of 6. During my teenage years, I had this perception that I was impervious to everything. Unfortunately, I was a bit reckless when it came to managing my disease, which I still regret to this day. Due to physical complications from the disease, one evening over the weekend, I was taking a late afternoon nap and my older sister was home from college in the room next to mine. Upon waking from my nap, something felt very off. I stood up and immediately felt unsteady before my knees buckled and I collapsed to the floor in a grand mal seizure, now referred to as a tonic-clonic seizure. The seizure was so violent that paramedics later informed me that I had been bleeding out of my mouth. Bit down on my tongue very hard. My older sister eventually heard the commotion and immediately called 911. The EMTs had a great deal of difficulty rousing me awake and I was without a pulse for almost 2 minutes. Essentially clinically dead according to EMTs. My mother was crying hysterically and my sister was in tears as well. As soon as I regained consciousness in the ambulance, I started vomiting violently. They managed to stabilize me overnight at the hospital and was able to return home afterwards. I don't recall anything during the seizure and only learned what had happened when I awoke. According to my mother, sister and the EMT's accounts, I'm 31 now and I don't take any chances anymore with this disease nor do I make any compromises when it comes to my diabetes supplies.